We going?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Sorry. This is the
Welcome,
ASMR beard against spit guard.
LSMR. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
My beard's not long enough anymore. I actually shaved it the other day. Trimmed it a little bit.
so I'm pretty sure that my wife is working against me. She's been intentionally under-seasoning my food to try to convince me that I've got COVID.
Are you, are you sure you don't have COVID? Did you get checked? Have you had a test yet?
No.
Why haven't you got a COVID test? You know they're important to keeping people safe. You know, actually, I read something today. It was talking about some folks that were in a house fire, and it said that they couldn't smell, so they couldn't actually. No, seriously, it said they couldn't smell, so they couldn't smell the smoke.
Why is that funny? It's a house fire.
No, it's not funny. I mean, it's like strange because they could. Well, they didn't die because there was one person in the house that didn't have COVID, and that person, I think it was the daughter, who could actually smell the smoke. I didn't realize you couldn't smell with COVID. I just thought it was taste. But I guess
that's
it's
one of
everybody.
the key. That's one of the key identifiers to differentiate it from the common cold or flu.
That you can't
To
smell.
let you know that you need to go get tested.
I thought it was just taste. I didn't understand the smell.
Smell and taste in a lot of cases. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, everybody was safe because. So it's just one more thing to think about, I guess, when you're dealing with COVID. So you should probably go get tested because you might have COVID.
What's the punchline?
In which case, we have COVID. So
I don't
thanks.
get it. I don't get it.
You're 6 feet away, so we're good.
I just told you. I thought that was gonna. No, that wasn't a joke.
No, I wasn't,
Okay.
I was being serious.
Sorry.
So a man walks into a bar. Okay. So I've got some notes over here, and there's a few things.
How you been? First of all.
I've been fantastic. I've been fantastic. Tired.
So are we calling this our like first actual live? We're gonna publish this nonsense.
When you say it like that, it makes me really nervous. Just kind of look around.
Well, if you're just catching up from last time,
Why didn't we decide on a puppet show? I think we should have done a puppet show instead.
we can.
It'd probably be better.
I'm actually a pretty experienced puppeteer.
I believe you. I really do.
I did.
Where do you get experience at being a puppeteer?
Youth ministries at church. Yeah. Puppets for the kids.
Do you have your own puppets?
No, not anymore. They belong to the church up in West Virginia. They had their own puppets.
So can you borrow puppets?
Maybe.
Do they have a puppet lease program?
I could probably just get them and bring them. I think we've got a couple up at our church.
Okay, well, we're going to plan a puppet show then. Because now
Okay.
I kind of want to see this.
This will be interesting.
The puppet show or this? In general?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right, well, so we've got a lot of different topics. How are you doing? I forgot to ask. How are you doing today?
No, it's okay. It doesn't matter.
I always feel the same
Obviously.
way, so that's why I didn't ask. But
I'm glad you're doing well, Chris.
yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's been nice. It's been quiet. I know we're finally through all of the holiday season, which I just sort of hold my breath and just kind of go through it and just make sure that nobody gets sick. Everybody's fine. Everyone's happy. It seems like for whatever reason, every holiday season somebody gets sick. Not this time, thank goodness.
Yeah.
How was yours? Did anybody get sick?
Oh yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
So you went up to.
I
you went home.
I went up to West Virginia.
Yeah. No.
where
Tell us
I'm
about.
from originally.
Okay.
I made some really cool Christmas presents.
What'd you
on
make?
on the old 3D printer.
Yeah.
I made some little like card kits. They're like little model kits that kind of like the old models where you had to pop the pieces out and had the flashings on it and everything. But these were a model of the COVID virus, and you put it together and it looks like a little COVID virus.
Wow, that seems a little tone deaf. Like that seems like a little insensitive.
I tend to be irreverent at times. So
You're a reverend?
yeah, I'm a reverend.
So when you made these things, it's a little card, and you punch them out, and when you punch the card
Yeah,
out,
you put them together and it
makes
like
a little 3D.
Yeah, it makes a little 3D model of the COVID virus.
So how'd that go?
Well, everybody got COVID, and not in the like, hey, I gave them this, but like they got it. Like a good portion of mine and the wife's family both got. So that was kind of cool. Not at all.
So everybody's okay though.
For the most part, from what I understand, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Um,
And of course we had a friend. You did that too as well. Nicely, you gave them.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I gave him the model. I didn't give him.
Yeah.
I mean, I gave him a COVID model, but
Yeah, you
not
did.
the COVID.
And then he got COVID. And his wife got COVID.
Maybe.
I don't think it has anything to do with that, though. I
Do
think
you-
it's completely.
You sure it isn't caused by 3D printers?
Nope.
I mean,
think
because
it-
there are people that think that 5G networks cause it.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I'm glad you had a good winter. I'm glad you had a good holiday
Winter solstice celebration
with the tree. You put
Festivus for the
up
rest of us.
and you burn it in your house, right? That's what you do
Yeah, we burned the tree.
in the house.
Yeah, you got to stay warm somehow.
Yeah. Okay. So can I continue? Because I've got a bunch of, I got some notes here. Do you want to go through the notes, Scotty? Do you want me to go through the notes? Is that okay? All right, Scotty toasted me. So I'm Chris. I don't think we've done this before. This is David over here. And I got in trouble for this last time. So we've got Scotty over here, not on a microphone, which is, I probably should be doing that. And we also have Chloe over here, and she is on a microphone.
Hi.
And Chloe says hi. Perfect. Good deal. So we're doing our best. We're doing our best.
We're working on it.
So yeah. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is what we're going to try to do here. If you've stuck with us this long, I don't know why, but here we go. Take it away.
Tomorrow's a big day.
What's tomorrow?
Inauguration day, man.
No, what do you mean inauguration? What's today? Today's Tuesday, January 19th.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow is.
The apocalypse.
I thought it was the 21st. What happens on the 21st?
I thought it was the 20th.
Oh, well, I know. It's definitely
No.
tomorrow because that's all we've been talking
the
about. today.
inauguration is tomorrow. The apocalypse is on the 21st.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, gotcha. We're tracking now.
Yep. Okay, good.
So the last time we tried to do one of these things, it was just after the election, and they were in the midst of all the recounts and accusations going both ways.
And we'll post that. We'll post that up.
Since then, things have kind of come to what seems like the apex, but who knows in the future what's going to happen.
If the apex is the top, what's the bottom? Like the trough, the bottom part?
I would say the administration of Grover Cleveland.
Okay. No. I mean, what's the opposite of apex? Anyway, yeah, it's been a wild couple months. So it was late November when we did the first one we tried, and then it's been a couple months because of holidays and stuff. And the goal is to get more of these things out there. Hey, look at that! We got some stuff on the screen. So
we're wanting to try to do at least weekly, right?
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Bi-monthly.
So one of the things that's been really interesting to me lately is, and I started out. What
is it? Semi-monthly or bi-monthly?
I started out with a thought. So the thought that I had was, how did we get here? And I don't mean just like through the calendar year. I don't mean just through, for example, like where'd everything come from? But how did we get here? And what I mean is we had what's being called right now is the Capitol riots, right? So that just happened recently. So I started to do a little bit of research and I started to think about it because and where I ended up, I think I didn't start out exactly where I ended up. Where I started out, where I didn't, because I was thinking I was going to go one direction. I went somewhere totally different. And I'm hoping the journey is as interesting to y'all as it was to me. But one of the things I was trying to figure out is, and what I mean by how did we get here is, how did we get so divided? So when I was a kid, like, I don't know, I didn't pay attention to any of this mess, right? And again, I don't think we're going to talk about politics all the time, but it really is kind of top of mind. I think that's all everybody's talked about at work, all everybody's talking about at home. It's the only thing you ever see on the news. It's constant. It's 24/7. Like, it's blasted into your brain constantly, and you get it all on the ads and stuff. You can't even listen to a podcast without hearing it. You can't listen to music without hearing it. Like, it's everywhere. And it's like, I don't know, like maybe as a kid, I just don't, like back in the 80s and maybe even early 90s, maybe I just wasn't paying attention to it. I just don't remember it being like that because it was kind of one of those things that like literally nobody talked about. Remember, you always hear two things you don't talk about is politics and religion.
Yeah, I think people for the most part still talked about it and were still divided along certain lines, but they didn't let it define them to the extent that we allow it to define us today, to where it's such a part of your identity,
right,
and your makeup that you're willing to break ties with people that you've had long-standing relationships because of some team affiliation.
And that was one of the weirdest things, and it was one of the weirdest comments I got from one of our buddies was, I started asking about something, and he's like, no, don't tell me about the election. Don't tell me who you voted for. And his words were exactly this. He goes, because if I find out you voted for Trump, I will never speak to you again. And I was like, that is so weird. Like, like whether I did or not, right?
To be fair, there's people on the opposite side that feel the same way. It's very, very
Oh,
divisive.
Yeah, I heard before. It's like, oh gosh, if you voted for Hillary, then I would never speak to you again.
Yeah.
If you voted for, I don't know if people were as mad at. I don't know. Yeah, I've seen people that are like, if you didn't vote for Trump, I'm angry at you. And like, I don't remember like back when like Bush Gore were running, right? Like, I don't remember. And that's kind of where I started my journey, because that's where I started really paying attention, because that's right after I was out of college. And I don't know, I just started to be a little more aware of it. I was really surprised by that reaction. This is not like somebody that's just an acquaintance. This is somebody who I'd consider pretty close. Like, we've been on trips together, right?
Yeah.
And of course he would say that he never said that, but he did. I remember it because it kind of shook me a little bit. I was like, that's weird. And I guess the question that I started out with was, well, how did we get here? How did we get to this place? And one of the things that has been surprising to me is the reaction as well to these riots, right? I'm not just talking about the Capitol one. I'm talking about the ones we've been having for the last 4 years, and then beyond that, because we've had riots for quite a while now.
Little flashpoints.
Yeah, and even at parts, it's been all over the country. And I've got links and stuff here. I tried not to. I don't want to get too into it, because my goal is not to go left, right. And you guys know me well enough to where like left, right, like the label stuff bothers me. Don't call me this, don't call me that, because I'm just me. And as soon as I say, hey, that guy over there's on the right, there's a bunch of stuff that gets attached to that.
All kinds of connotations go along with it, and assumptions.
That may or may not actually apply to that person. Just like, and really it's a stereotype at this point, right? Like left, right has become a stereotype. And that's not, I don't find that helpful, because what you do is you minimize the person that you're talking about, and you minimize them down to this little bitty jar, this little
category.
Category that may or may not apply. Anyway, but one of the surprising things, and I don't know why this surprised me, I guess, is the reaction to the riots.
Yeah.
Like all of them.
Well, one of the things I think that's contributed to how we got here, and along with the reactions to the riots, and it's kind of circular how it works, but the media coverage, the 24/7 news cycle, and the propagation of fear about this group or that group doing this or that. We look back into the 60s and stuff, and there were plenty of riots went on back then. There were a number of federal buildings and state buildings that people sent bombs to and stuff during that time frame, and because it wasn't like constantly bombarded into your face from every media agency on the internet to broadcast TV, radio, and everything else, it was something you looked at on the front page of the Sunday paper and was like, oh, interesting.
That's awful.
Somebody sent a bomb to that building. Glad nobody was hurt, and moved on, or something of that nature. Now it's like, get ready for the next one. This one's going to be Operation whatever, and they've got the conspiracy theory angle comes into it too. It's ridiculous.
And not only that, though, like the coverage of it is one thing, and I'll get to that in a little bit, because I really think that there's a point where it changed from what you're talking about, which is let's talk about the news, to something different. And that's part of the, and I'm not going to label it now. I just really want to walk through it. But that's one of the things that I found was interesting. In the things that, and I think the hyper-centralized, or the hyper, I guess, centralization of the right-left thing was one of the other things that really got to me. But before I go there, some of the things that got to me, or that surprised me about the riots, was I keep hearing the words heartbreaking and shocking. And one of the things I want to get to today is like, if you look at the evidence over the last 20 years, if you look at where we started and kind of where we wound up, not only should we have seen it coming, like it feels like we should have seen this coming, but you could almost look at it and see how it's been engineered over the last 20 years. I'm going to explain where I'm coming from, because I think it makes sense. And this is not conspiracy or anything like that. Like I just started looking at really the trends, looking at the different things that we saw over the last 20, or that I can see over the last 20 years, just living it, and go, huh, no, that actually makes sense that we got here. But the thing that really gets to me is not only why, but like, why do people feel the way they do? Like that's kind of the end of where I'm at, is why do people feel the way they do here?
Yeah.
And I'll work through that as well.
I think that the polarization has been in the works for a while, and like you said, it does seem like it's too. It is too orchestrated or engineered, like you said. Oh, good grief! My brain's shutting down already. My brain's shutting down.
It's well,
the organization or orchestration is totally intentional as a way of, to me, looking at it from my point of view, keeping us at odds with each other, to not see the real enemy, to like majoring on the minor differences between ourselves and not seeing the real threats that are going on.
So a couple things that I was looking at was, and again, I'm going to go back to 2000. That's where I started. And one of the things that I'll call this out, right? There's always been this history of the back and forth between the left and the right, whether it's the Republicans and Democrats, whether it's the Whigs in the, who are the Whigs against? I forget.
They're the people who wore wigs.
Right. But there's the Whigs and the somebodies, like whatever it is. And then when you look back at, like, for example, certain presidents.
The Federalists and the Whigs?
That sounds right. There were, when you look back at the different presidents, and I don't know, I'm not even going political on this. Like, I'm just covering history here. Like the two names that ring a bell for the last generation and then the previous generation of presidents that people just like had a strong opinion on were like Nixon and Carter. Like, mention Carter in certain households, and it's like, you know, like folks are upset with that. Nixon as well. Like, some folks were like on the board of like, we love Nixon, don't like Nixon. But it was this weird, they were still like a president, right? Like, it felt to me, and I could be wrong, because again, I wasn't paying attention back then because I wasn't born. But it feels like it was like, well, that was a president, and they're going to do their thing, and it is what it is, and just let them go do that thing. But it wasn't like, this guy affects me personally and affects myself personally. Like, I feel angry all day long because I'm sitting there thinking about this. I could be wrong. But there was always, feels like, a respect for the seat, right? There was always some sort of respect for the presidency. And I could go back and look at like a Bill Clinton and say, maybe he did demystified that a little bit. Don't need to get into why, but maybe he did demystify that a little bit. Maybe he brought a little bit more personality to the seat than other presidents. But you can go back to Kennedy and say Kennedy kind of did the same thing, right? Because you got the whole Marilyn Monroe thing and stuff, and then,
as I say, he brought a lot of things to that seat,
right? So, but again, it's like, it's not so. I guess because you've got the concept of the office, right? And then you have the person that's in the office. And oftentimes those are two different things, because you've got the president of the United States, and then you've got John F. Kennedy. Like, those are two different people, or there's really are two different people. One's an image, one's an idea, one's a thought or an ideal, right? And the other one's a person. And maybe you shouldn't separate them, but I definitely feel like not only have they been combined, but I feel like the ideal has kind of gone away, which is either good or bad, whatever. I feel like the ideal has gone away, and I feel like the image really has kind of gone away, and you focusing more on the person than you are
cult of personality kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, not blaming those guys. Those are just, when you look back at those two, those are when the president became like sort of like less than a president and more of a person.
Reagan too. Reagan brought a lot of personality and charisma to it.
He did, but I don't know. And again, you either hate him or love him, whatever. Yeah. But he felt like more of a statesman. Obama, very much of a statesman. Like, I feel like, I keep touching this, sorry. I feel like Obama was more of a statesman, like almost kind of above that sort of stuff, right? And then, of course, you have people who have very strong opinions about President Trump, right? So you've got President Obama, you got President Trump.
That is an understatement.
Right. And again, not here either way. But yeah. I think, and you touched on it a second ago, I think the biggest thing that has changed in the last 20 years has been the 24/7 news cycle.
Yeah.
Because so many times before during that, you had a Walter Cronkite or I don't know, name a news anchor. That's the only one I can really think of. Tom Jennings, right?
Rather.
Dan Rather, there you go. You had these news anchors that would
Mhm.
come on one time. And I was thinking about this too about our children. Was like, think about the amount of information our kids take in right now. Because you hand an iPad, like I've got an iPad, I've got information overload. And a lot of it's even unintentional, right? Because it could just be, you could be looking up something on, like my youngest one, dude, seriously, she can sing a song to the 100th place of pi. Like she sang it to us the other day. Like that kind of blew me away. So she pulls that up and she learns about that. And then she pulls stuff up, like Chloe over here, she learns how to build things and she learns how to make things from like YouTube. But even when you're doing that, there's ads that come across, right? So it's unintentional information that you're being kind of sort of subjected to that is outside of anybody's real understanding of what controls are going to be like.
Definitely wasn't what you were looking for. It's
Right.
unsolicited.
Unsolicited is the word. That's right.
Yeah.
Because when you go to like, I'm thinking the Encyclopedia Britannica, the guy that comes to the door and he knocks on and you're going to buy one book a month, right? Because those, I was like $3,000 for the set or whatever. I don't know. You knew it was in the book, right? There was no ads. There was no anything. It was just, here's your Britannica. Here's your encyclopedia set, done. There's nothing streaming to it all the time. And again, I get it's part of the culture. It's how they pay the bills. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying lots of information's coming in all the time. So like, first of all, like as far as the kids go, just to squirrel on that a little bit longer, how do we deal with that as parents? Right? Because on one hand, you want to cut them off and say, you know what? Unplug.
That's enough for the day. Yeah.
But on the other hand, but it doesn't matter. It could be 5 minutes in and then there's like 8 TikTok ads and there's people dancing and doing whatever. Like that input, I never had that input when I was a kid. Like I was dumb. I'm still dumb. But like as a kid, like I never learned anything except for I was with school or I was reading or something like that. The amount of information they could take in constantly, like I can't imagine why they're not just insane because all the information coming into their brains, it's overload.
Well, a lot of it's useless too. A lot of it's useless that you can just let go in one ear and out the other. I'm not saying that it doesn't leave in
because it sits there and percolates.
I'm not saying that it doesn't have an effect. I mean, but it's not something that you're like trying to commit to memory or anything because it's super useful.
Right.
And
even if they're not focused on it, right, it's just sitting there percolating in the back of their mind. Like it's there.
Well, to an extent, we can filter through that stuff and process it, but
Dude,
too much of something like that, you're not going to be able to deal with.
Yeah, your back brain, your subconscious is going to sit there and just chew on it for a while. Even if it comes out in the middle of that had cool stream yesterday. I was doing CCNA stuff. I was working on iOS and I'm working on setting up a VPN on a router. Anyway, it was funny because I was sitting there looking up the code, and not really code, but the configuration for it. And as I was looking up the configuration for it, it was funny. Last night I had a dream, and I was popping in the config for the ports and stuff, and my dream came along and said, "Are you sure you want to do that, friend?" And it was just funny because I had somebody in a knock talking to me and pointed out that I had put something in wrong that was going to shut a port. Anyway, so I glanced at it for about 5 minutes the other day. I was like, let me figure this out. It's some plan I got to make. But still, my back brain was chewing on it, like it was sitting there thinking about it.
You think some of that stuff kind of acts to almost tranquilize us? It almost like it occupies so many of the limited clock cycles that we are unable.
Mine are definitely limited.
Yeah, but it threatens our ability to process things that we should be processing because, like you said, our back brain, our subconscious, is busy ruminating some of this other stuff.
I almost think it's actually back there trying to help us comb through the stuff we were trying to figure out.
Oh yeah. But what I'm saying is that because it's busy doing that, because it's busy worrying about whatever that TikTok ad in the background of something was, that it's not able to focus on other things. It's like having a giant gaping memory leak in Chrome that's constantly eating up your memory. And then whenever
for the last 12 years,
then when you're trying to do something super important, then the system is just dragging, trying to process something important.
You can close one of those 135 tabs you have open. Right?
You need to quit judging me. Right
I'm just saying it's a possibility. You're allowed to do it, man. You can always right-click, reopen tab. It'll open it. Anyway, so think about all that, right? So think about all this information coming into your brains.
Yeah.
And then to think about kids, and kids process it a lot better than we do because they're way smarter. They're big sponges, right? But again, it's a lot of information.
And they've been conditioned to deal with it too.
They are being conditioned. We're going to see what's going to happen because this really is the first generation to grow up in this digital age that has YouTube. I mean, think about it. And it's just like, oh, YouTube, you got a bunch of yuck. That's what you always say, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yuck comedy hour.
But like YouTube, like I don't know about you guys. This is probably too much information, but we got a stand in the shower, and I literally take the iPad in the shower and I pop it up. Seriously, and I'll sit there and watch YouTube in the shower. I should not do that, right? I should probably just be chilling and just relaxing and stuff. But I'm sitting in the shower thinking,
Cleaning your body.
I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, I haven't logged into what's new in the new Wireshark 2020. Like, how do I make these setting changes, or where have they found anything new in Machu Picchu? Like, I got to check this out right now, where I should just have more downtime. And that's one of the things is I don't think we have any downtime, right? That's kind of where I'm going here. We don't have any downtime. We've got this 24/7 news cycle. We've got all this information that's constantly hitting our faces, constantly. Most of it that's never going through a publisher. Like, anybody can just go out there, tap, 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 tap. And that's great. It's probably one of the best and worst times to be alive as far as when it comes to freedom of the press, free speech, all that sort of stuff, right? So, but the information's constantly overflowing, and because that back brain is constantly chewing on all this new stuff, we're not outside. Well, not all of us are not outside, chopping wood, thinking about how we're going to sow grain and all that kind of stuff all day. Well, some of us work. But we're constantly got this stuff going on in the background.
I feel like I was targeted with that last comment.
No, I'm
just
just
sitting
saying.
here ruminating on how much I enjoy being outside chopping wood, thinking about sowing grain.
And why is that? Because it's peaceful and it's nice, right? And
Yeah.
and you can just sit there and just unplug.
Satisfying.
But how many people do you see sitting at a restaurant? Not judgment, right? Sitting there. Okay, now listen. The lady
a little
driving.
bit of judgment.
The lady driving around, right, doing this number, or the dude driving around doing this number, texting people because that funny comment, and I just got to get it out there because it's perfectly timed. Set your phone down and drive, please. Like, seriously. Not that my old beater is going to mind if you sideswipe me like for the third time, but still, please. It's dangerous. But anyway, it's that constant drive to next. Even now, like, we have lights on and it's dark. It's like it's 7 o'clock outside. It would have been dark. I guess it's still dark now. I was gonna say it would have
It's
been
7
dark.
o'clock inside too.
I would have said it would have been dark 100 years ago, but I guess it's dark now. But like when it got dark, you'd light some candles or whatever, and after that you go to bed. Like 100 years ago, you go to bed because there's nothing to do. There's no.
I've really got to pee.
You're supposed to do that before. All right, bye bye. Well, I'm just gonna continue to talk while you go pee.
Keep going. Be right
oh
back.
my goodness. But now you're not gonna hear any of my points.
Yeah, well, I'm still listening.
No, you're not listening. You got to go to. It's upstairs. All right. Well, yeah. Welcome to the show. This is what we're gonna do. Apparently, I'm just gonna sit here and, no, Scotty's like, no, I'm not gonna get in front of the camera. I'm gonna stay over here. I'm perfectly fine. Chloe's over here's like, no, get over there. He's gonna drown without him. And I feel like a little bit hot under the collar. And no, anyway, let me just so what I was kind of getting at. I'll talk to you guys. I forget you guys over here. I don't need David. Whatever, David. Go pee, David. He's got an empty cup under that. I don't know what he's running upstairs for. Mystifying seat, 24-hour news cycle. Yes. So the 1999 election. Are you guys? No, I know you weren't. But you guys, were you old enough to remember the 1999 election? The Al Gore and President Bush. I'm so old. I'm not that old. But in this election, it was one of the first elections that we had, I don't know, in my lifetime. Okay, so it's my lifetime. And the difference, I think, is think about 1999. Internet had just come out, like, I don't know, 3 years before. You want me to look over there? But you guys are over this way. It's weird if okay. The internet had just came out a couple years before. Like, in my college, I don't think we even had internet in the college. Like, a little bit, right? But we didn't have, like, routers. Anyway, I remember we didn't even have internet in the libraries. So 99, there's not a bunch of news sites out there. People are still on BBSs and stuff like that. All you have is the major news networks, which there weren't a lot. This was pre-Fox News, I think, in 1999. You had Al Gore and you had President Bush, President Bush because he won, right? Or didn't. I'm not making a qualifying statement there, but he was our president. And you had this thing where a bunch of people voted and a bunch of people in Florida voted. And then
supposedly,
and then you had this big thing with hanging chads, and you had miscounts, and you had recounts, and you had all this stuff.
Dimpled chads, hanging chads.
So, but the weirdest thing that changed in 99, and we'd never really seen this before, is it became like a game show. So that was the difference. Like presidential elections happened before that.
Team sport.
and maybe I wasn't quite there, but all of a sudden you had this 24-hour news cycle that were following it like it was a team sport,
Yep.
like it was the Patriots versus the Penguins or whatever, right? So you've got this back and forth of this guy's going to win, this guy's going to win, and it's like a kind of a horse race, right? And you get people invested not only in the outcome, but in who wins the outcome now. And then you start picking sides.
Mm-hmm.
And again, obviously you picked a side because you voted, but it never really was, I don't know, I just don't feel like it was that important before.
Well, just like sports teams, people build it up as part of their identity. This is who I am. I am part of this. I'm a Steelers fan, okay?
Right.
So when they win, then I get the satisfaction of winning.
That's right.
And when the same thing with my political party, when they win, then I get to lord it over everybody else at the water cooler, say that my team won.
And then you have this state by state, county by county ballot counting that was like, all right, folks, let's check into Denver, Colorado. What are you looking like? Hey, guys, let's check into Connecticut. What's Connecticut looking like? And now it is in the news. They started to pump it up a little bit, right? Because again, let's keep in mind they're there to make money. Don't fault them for that, but that's what they're doing.
Yep.
Want to keep the viewership, want to keep people involved, and then all of a sudden, all the other news stations looked at that and went, "Hold on a second, these guys are onto something, right?" Like hurricane comes along. That's all you hear about for a week before and a week after. You hear about the hurricanes. I get it. Like, let's let everybody know there's a hurricane. Let's make sure that everybody's in the path, out of the path of danger, and they've got all the information that they need. But seeing that guy being fake blown around by wind for the 18th time, it's like, do I really need to see that?
Or the dude in the ditch, and he's literally down on his knees to make it look like the water's higher.
Right.
That was a great one.
So
somebody comes walking behind him and looking at him like, what are you doing?
So the sensationalism of it starts to happen, and then you get this feeling of competition that you didn't really have before. Or maybe, I don't know. Again, I got this feeling of competition that I never really had before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember who I voted for back then. I really don't. Wouldn't say it anyway. It was probably Snoopy, I'm just saying, because he's always a safe candidate.
Yeah.
But
he had a really good foreign policy.
But you have...
Get rid of that Red Baron.
That's right. He was after that Red Baron. Never actually did see the Red Baron do anything bad to anybody, but I believe in Snoopy because he seems like a pretty straightforward fellow.
The sensationalism is a big aspect of it, and I think that the people kind of leveraging that from the newscaster side of the house, or we'll just say the media group side of the house, right? Leveraging that so that they can get advertisements to sell and things like that to draw and attract viewers was one aspect of it for a long time.
Right.
And I think eventually somebody clued in within the last couple decades probably and figured out what can we do to drive this more. And they got the final element, and I think that was fear. When they could get past it just being a competition, and whenever you could include fear into it too, that's whenever you saw the real rise of Fox News, and started to see their numbers just explode. Because I think they were around in 99 or thereabouts.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember right in 2001, that's when Sean Hannity pretty much came out.
Well,
and then that's when Fox kind of exploded.
When September 11th happened. Right. I remember some of the points when we had been in Afghanistan for a while. Excuse me. And we were over in another part of the world with some of the guys that I was in the service with. And we were watching as they were doing the shock and awe over Baghdad.
That's right.
And how they were, gosh, I don't want to even say trumping it up because bad pun. But they were building up the sensationalism. They were building up the competitiveness of our team versus their team, and the fear, why we need to do this, why this is so important that you've got to drop everything and pay attention because we've got to stop this evil from happening.
That's a good point as far as the competitiveness and stuff, and the sensationalism as far as that goes. Because really, Desert Storm '93, that was really the first time war like that was covered live, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of that being covered live, and it went into all the other stuff. It was almost like And that was, you could log in, you could turn your TV on anytime you wanted to, and people were getting blown up, and they were talking about blowing up people and like all this stuff. Like it was all, and it was about, and some of the stuff was about folks checking in on their loved ones that are overseas, and I get that. The news stations figured out pretty fast, hold on a second, we just figured some way to keep these people engaged and watching my news station pretty much constantly.
Looped in, jacked in for good.
And then all of a sudden those commercials, like it's weird because you say, oh, that's there for the greater good and blah, blah, blah. But they stopped right in the middle of telling you about Johnny's dad being over there to show you a commercial about Ben Gay or something, right? So it's about money. Like you gotta back up and look at it and say, no, the news is there without money, because they don't run without commercials. It doesn't matter how important it is. Very rarely do you hear them say, we need to skip a commercial break, right? Because that's how they pay the bills.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Few and far between. I've heard that. Yeah,
which is fine. But I think once, and there was a point in time where folks were like, all right, done, stop, because it was on all the time.
Yeah,
they got addicted to that money. They got addicted to that feed, that drip, right? That was constantly coming in from those big ratings, and they had to replace that with something. Come 1999, come the election cycle, because I remember them covering it a little bit, but the other thing was, I remember them covering a little bit, but not to that extent. The other thing was, and you keyed on this,
it was every little thing to come down the pike. It was like you got to the point where you were like, okay, the Tour de France is going on. Why does every major news agency have 24/7 coverage of Tour de France right now? And I think that's when people started being like, all right, this is just getting stupid.
Well, everybody likes Formula One, right? So the other thing that you keyed in on, though, was when you said the sensationalism is when you start thinking about, okay, so you had go back to Walter Cronkite. What I liked about him was he was very concrete about the things that he was saying.
Matter of fact.
It was there you go, better, matter of fact, but it was a statement, right?
Yeah.
And then right around the time in the late 90s, and maybe it was before, maybe it was after, this is just what I remember, all of a sudden you started seeing stuff like, did Bush lose the election?
Yeah, the interrogative headlines, right?
Are your votes in Florida counting? Are the hanging chads potentially going to sway the election? And all of a sudden, these questions started popping up.
Rhetorical,
and it's like,
interrogative questions.
And they're not telling you it's going to do it, but they're getting you to think that. And then your back brain starts chewing on it. It's like, wow, wait a minute.
Well,
those hanging chads, man.
If you were in a
really
court of law, somebody would be going, objective, leading the witness, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But obviously the news is not there. So that's another thing too that hit me, is like all of a sudden you get these leading, like you said, you get these leading questions, these leading lines that nobody ever actually goes and answers. They ask the question because if they said, well, blah, 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 like Bush won, then somebody can go back and say, hey, wait a minute, you said this and then this was wrong, and that whatever. And then now all of a sudden it's libel or it's slanderous or anything like that.
Public opinion. It's like was the old saying, if you tell a lie often enough and loud enough, it becomes the truth. And I think it's the same way with those kind of questions. Is it's supposed to get you to the point where you're asking the question too, so that it's not. There's no burden of proof at that point.
Because you didn't say anything. You're just asking a question.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I just asked a question, man. What are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
So that's it. So nobody asks questions. So I don't have any burden of proof here. I just asked you a question. Why you come at me, bro? So that happened. So just a couple other little factoids for you, just to throw this out there, right? So 93, that's when the Desert Storm and stuff around there, and we started to see the rise of that news coverage.
Yep.
Road Rules debuted on MTV in 1995. So you could call that the first reality show, pretty much. Not a lot of people watched MTV back then, but it is what it is. Road Rules came out. Now, fast forward 1999, 2000, one of the biggest reality shows started in June of 2000, Big Brother. Survivor was pitched in November of 99 and came out in May of 2000. Survivor's had, I think it's like 43 seasons at this point.
Really?
Big Brother. I didn't even count that one. 20-ish.
If you do that, you have to count all the different other nationalities who have
iterations and
copied
stuff.
it.
Yeah. So you've got this rise of
Jersey Shore.
you've got this rise of reality TV that starts to happen, and then so that's not the news stations doing that.
Mhm.
That's the parent chase stations doing that, and those
Trying to
went,
keep up with the news
those
stations,
went
really.
wild,
Yeah.
right? And then the news station sits back and goes, "Huh, reality TV, huh? Yeah, we can do that."
Yeah.
Because what's more real than real? Like the elections are real.
Mhm.
The what is it? The Democrats wanting to legalize abortion is real, and the Republicans coming to take your Social Security, that's real too.
Comes back to that point I keep bringing up.
About fear.
The fear, man.
That's right.
So, like, to go back a few more steps, you look at the first time the American public was really exposed to the horrors of war was Vietnam. Because up to that point, all through World War I and World War II, any media that came back, photography and stories, was always pretty sterilized.
Right. It was you say censored, but it really was. It was censored.
Yeah, it was. It was censored, literally censored by the military intelligence and propaganda groups, that whatever you want to call them.
What caused them to change? Like,
Well, what happened is in Vietnam, since we weren't technically there in a declared state of war, there was nothing stopping media from actually traveling there themselves through other means. And you started getting people bring back not a photograph here or there, where they flew back and had to have their film checked by the intelligence groups or something. You had people go there, record video, and then like sneak it back or broadcast it from a neighboring country back to the United States somehow.
Okay, hold on. So what's the difference between, because you said something very specific. You said by not declaring war. So it wasn't a declared war, Vietnam.
It wasn't. It was a, at least in the first part, it was a, what did they call it? They had a really clever term for not calling it war. They were there as advisors for the most part.
Right.
At the very beginning, and then once we meddled enough and our advisors got attacked, I'm not sure if they ever actually made it a congressionally declared war or not, but it as far as I know, it never was.
Yeah, neither one of us are historians, but that's oh no, it says right here. I'm on Wikipedia. The U.S. never officially declared war.
Yeah.
About the closest thing you can point to is the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, passed in 1964. So that's interesting.
And there's a lot of things that, you can get into a bunch of conspiracy theories about this or that. But long story short, at that point, the American public got exposed to the full brunt of what warfare was. You had Time magazine publishing stuff. You had videos making it back to some of the major broadcast networks on the 6 o'clock news and things like that. So,
and not to beat up on America, this is part of it feels like it's part of our DNA, right? Because this is the whole Roman.
This is our perspective, right?
And the whole Roman conquest and stuff, like that's what they would do is they'd go out and they'd beat, they'd take over some folks and kill a bunch of folks, and then they would send messengers back, and they'd have big parties and parades and stuff like that. Hey, we won again, right?
Yeah, totalista.
Yeah.
We finally got to see what was going on there. We didn't see the horrors of it from World War I, World War II, and Korea until after those conflicts had subsided, and then eventually stuff started trickling out. A lot of times it was footage or pictures that were taken by the troops themselves to kind of intentionally or inadvertently document things that they thought were important. And in Vietnam, they may have had a slanted opinion when they went in to get this information. The press, I mean.
Right.
So whenever they come out with this stuff, who's saying that they didn't doctor things here or there? But overall, it was even if they didn't doctor it, it was still a very stark contrast to what they had previously. And then it progressed from there up into present day.
Like literal live, because I remember literal live.
Shock and all, man.
Watching bombings and stuff happening in missiles launching out of the rocket pod carriers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
you had the destroyers in the Gulf and
boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
ripple firing missiles off.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember when President Clinton he ordered the Tomahawk strikes. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And you watch the whole thing from the Gulf of Persia. You watch the entire thing happen live. And I think that was the biggest difference with Vietnam is you've got almost live coverage of Vietnam, color photos, color videography going on, and it's coming back in almost real time. Like people are being able to see this in real time, and there really is no controlling the press at that point.
Yeah.
So people are like, "Whoa!" I mean, it was a big, and when you see it, it's not Call of Duty, man.
There's no censoring. There's
Right.
no censoring or sterilizing things. It is. It was a shock to people,
Right.
and that's one of the reasons why the calls for the war to stop was so loud during Vietnam. And nowadays, I said they've got that piece. They've got the propaganda machine is full swing, and does things like they drum up support for the war before you even go in. They spend years sometimes building up a case against a group of people to explain why we need to do this.
Right.
And they'll spend hundreds of hours, hundreds of millions of dollars in the different media outlets to convince you that this is what needs to happen and this is for the greater good.
And nowadays, it's all televised. Every last bit of it. Like you see the beginning to the end. Well, the parts
And you
that
see
want
the
you to
three.
see.
You see the three pillars though in all of those propaganda things that when we're drumming up for war, you see the competitiveness, the sensationalism, and the fear.
Right.
All of those three things. You got the go wave a flag, right? Rah rah, our team against their team.
Right.
And when we saw those things in other countries in the 40s, it was terrifying.
Right. So I'm going to step away from that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a little bit. I'm going to get back to the. But,
Sorry, I'm rabbit trailing.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's interesting.
That's what I do.
That's a tough that's a tough discussion to go down because it's very charged. It's very charged, and I don't think I'm prepared for that tonight. It's very charged. So going back.
There's strong feelings about it, right? I mean,
Well, it is because and there's strong feelings on both sides. Like even still in the Vietnam War, because
yeah, and one of the reasons why I brought it up is that there's such strong feelings today,
right,
and I think that the root is the same regardless of the situation. Those three pillars are being used now to cause us to divide and so harshly into those camps that you're discussing.
it literally just clicked as you were explaining it.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. No, you're exactly right. So 2000, when President Bush won the election, that divide.
Yeah, I'm not just sitting here trying to beat up America.
No.
I love my country.
When that in 2000 when he won the election, there was a divide that we'd never really seen before in the country.
Yeah.
Because you had the media calling the results, and there's news. There's still it's hard to find. You got to go out there and look, because what you see a lot of news articles that were written today about what happened then, but there are still archives about stuff that was written back then. But in 2000, the media were calling the results illegitimate because of the questions of the hanging chads in Florida.
Yeah.
So they all but said illegitimate. So the interesting part was, because we're talking about the riots now, theoretically, like the Capitol Hill riots were about some folks believing that this election was illegitimate.
Absolutely. And the charges that were levied that incited the riots were very similar, if not the same, as what happened back then about the dimpled and hanging chads.
Right. Gosh, I was trying to pull up this link and send this over to them. I'm sorry, I should have done this prior.
No, you're all right.
Actually, if you go to uselectionatlas.org, uselectionatlas.org, it's pretty neat because it's I don't know if this is one that you can actually believe in or whatever, but it's one of the ones.
Part of me likes to think that like by putting that link out there, we've killed the site. You know how like Reddit will hug a site to death.
Not yet.
Not going to happen.
Well, all five of the people
that site is safe.
All five of our friends that watch this are going to be like, man, I'm like,
get accused of denial of service attacks.
What's that site one more time?
I'm trying to
US
send
Election Atlas.
Yeah. Let me pull up
.org.
Do you have Telegram over there?
I do not.
Do you? Okay, good. I'll send you stuff. Let's see. I think that's right. Anyway, so
So do you kind of do you get what I'm saying about the three pillars? I mean, do those kind of click? You think there's other elements to it, or do you want to table that for a second?
no, I think you're right. I think you're right, and I think that's there. And I think what happened was is they saw these ratings for this war, and I think they got addicted to it.
Yeah.
And so they started looking at the ratings for the war. Yeah, that's right. And you can even go back to 2000 election, like it's got a ton of the elections there, and it's got all the data. So that's where I'm pulling a lot of my data. I cross-referenced it, but that one is pretty good to show how many votes and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm talking about this stuff, one of the things that I'll say, I mean, obviously you can look at me and you're like, you know what, dude, like you don't know what you're talking about. You're absolutely right. Anything that I say, just double check it. go look it up somewhere. Just go validate it. Don't ever believe.
Not experts.
Yeah, don't ever believe anything anybody says to you. Always validate it, especially if it doesn't feel right.
What's the old line? Believe only half of what you hear and nothing that you see,
right?
Or something like
that. Yeah.
Half of what you see and nothing that you hear. That's what it was.
So back then, so check this out. Back then,
2020.
Gore narrowly won the popular vote by 540,000 votes. There was 105,425,985 votes cast. By comparison, in 2020, there was 158,542,000 people that voted. Now, this is something that Chloe and I have been talking about for a little while, and this is kind of weird. And this is her point, so I'm not going to steal it. But we were talking about the other day.
Yoink.
There are 330. No, I'm giving her all the credit here.
Mm-hmm.
So 158 million people voted. Okay. There are 330,814,000 people. So 330 million people in almost 331 million in the country now. Just over 52% of the people voted. Half the country voted. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So put that in perspective. Only a quarter of the country, 25%, decided who the president's going to be. Think about that for a second. 25% of the people said, you know what, you're the right dude for the job. I don't care what side you land on. And if you look back at Trump, like in 2016, it was about the same margin. Like it was 25% or less.
Yeah.
People said, you know what, I want that to be our president. And Chloe goes, shouldn't you go like shoot for 75% or more? Like think about it.
At least a 2/3 majority.
And is 25% the best we can get?
Yeah.
Like 25% agreement on anything's at the best we can get.
Mm-hmm.
And I get some folks are like, well, election fraud and all that kind of stuff. And that's, you know what? Literally, 3 weeks ago, not a big thing to say that. Nowadays, it's like a flashpoint. You say it's election fraud. There's no such thing as election fraud. Anyway, right around 2000, the conversation moved away from...
No, like 4 years ago to say election fraud.
Oh, yeah.
You were lauded for saying that.
That's right. Because, and again, it was up until about 6 months ago that we heard about Russian collusion the entire time, right? So that's all we heard about for the last 3.5 years. And the frustration is...
all of a sudden, it just got dropped.
Yeah, and the people in our own monkey sphere that we talk to, right?
Uh-huh.
You say, do you remember... Or you remember, a year ago, you were telling me that the Russians helped Trump win the election. No, not at all. Nope. Oh, hold on a second. So you said, though, that...
I believe that first round of impeachments against him was specifically about that, right?
Paul Manafort, all those guys, right?
Completely had zero evidence.
Well, the investigation that came out from it 3 years later that was redacted and all this other kind of stuff came out that all the senators read. There was no evidence of it, right?
Yep.
Now, whether you believe in a conspiracy there or not, I don't care. But the point is, in 2016, there was crazy amounts of election fraud. In 2000, again, going back all the way to 2000, crazy amount of election fraud to the point where it was almost, I think I've got the note here somewhere, but it was somewhere in November 27th in the New York Times. They were still filing Al Gore was still filing lawsuits in November 27th. So they were still filing lawsuits because they said there was so much election fraud or the election wasn't done right or run right or anything like that. So 2000, didn't hear a whole lot about that in 2004.
What a shame. Besmirching the integrity of our nation's most sacred election process.
And that's what we're hearing now. And that's the weird part. And that's, again, either side, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me. But that flip, right? Like you got to look at that flip and go, hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of double standards. That's what I'm not a fan of.
4 years ago,
Pick
it was
your
all
team, whatever, but the double standards is what bugs me.
what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? That's what I always heard. So you going 4 years ago, it's all election fraud. In 2000, it's all election fraud, right? President Obama won by such a landslide in 2008 and 2012. Like it was 67% of the vote. So it wasn't even close. But all these close elections come down to election fraud, 2000, 2016, 2020.
Even with Obama, the Republicans were playing a different angle with that because they spent, good grief, 4 years of his term saying that he wasn't an American citizen.
Right, he was from Kenya. Right,
He
exactly.
was born in Kenya.
Yeah, devaluating.
So for them to act all like, for
them to act all high and mighty in 2016 is kind of silly, right?
It's pretty incredulous.
And the funny part is again, like one of the things that really gets to me is it's one of those things where the double standard is, well, my team's doing it, so it's okay. So my team is saying, hey, you're from Kenya, and that's okay. It's either okay or it's not okay. Because then 4 years later, when you say, hey, you have election fraud because you're colluding with Russia, hold on a second, like which is right?
Yeah.
Because either way, you're saying that the man's invalid for the job because he either didn't win the election or he wasn't born here, right? Whereas this one now, they're saying President Trump, because he's currently the president, is saying there was total election fraud. And then the flip side is happening in the media right now where the media is saying not a bit. Not only was there not election fraud, you're a conspiracy theorist if you say it. You're completely wrong and you're inciting violence and riots. And it's like, hold on a second. 4 years ago, it was all about, for 3.5 years, not only was there election fraud, but the Russians, who for whatever reason the media always says is our greatest enemy we've ever had. Okay.
Always.
So the Russians, the evil Russians that are trying to kill us all the time, right? Since the 1940s, they caused President Trump to become elected. So not only is it election fraud, like I think even, I don't know, truthfully I'm not following this because it's such a hot flashpoint and I don't even want to mess with it. I don't want to touch it. But in 2020, saying, you know what? Did you check the bins in Georgia? Because there was 435,000 ballots that seem to be lost. Like there are people, independent folks that are out there saying 435,000 that are lost. How dare you? Conspiracy and what'd you say?
You have no evidence. Well, I'm trying to question
I'm
so we
asking-
can get some evidence.
In-
No, you're
in-
not allowed to do that.
In 2 years ago, the question would have been, were the elections influenced by the Russian media? What was President Trump elected by the Russians? And now when you say, were 435,000 votes vanished? They say,
Whoa.
This is, listen, it is
You've gone too far.
it is un-American to even question the system.
Not only that, but their headlines have switched from interrogative to statements of fact about
That's
it.
right.
There is no evidence of this.
That's right. And just to point out, the man has been completely banned on Facebook, Twitter, all of it.
Every major news network.
Right. We didn't check. I know he released a video today. I didn't even bother to watch because I don't care. And I don't care about the politics. I don't care about the people. What I care about is you've got our authorities, right? Well, whether you want them to be or not, right? Our government's our authorities doing one thing in 1 year and doing something else in another year. In the gut reaction from most folks is, well, that's fine because he's on my side. They did it when they were on those side over there. They did it for them, so now we're going to do it.
Oh, I'm looking at some of the things that they're positing right now to fix this problem. I think of one senator in particular talked about almost media re-education to let them know that they can't go around spreading lies. And nobody was saying anything like that 4 years ago from the opposite side of the spectrum.
Right.
But now that door is open, and now that there's a lot of public support for that kind of thinking, they're probably going to pass a bunch of stuff like that and really damage the First Amendment. It's going to get deconstructed,
Which is odd.
like the Fourth Amendment did with the Patriot Act, but that's a whole other conversation.
Which is odd coming from the people who benefit the most from
Oh yeah, you
the First
typically
Amendment.
you're big privacy and media defenders, right? But what's going to happen is in 4 to 8 years, election cycle swings again. And the things that they set in place to deal with this issue now are going to be used against that side, and they're not going to see it coming. It happens all the time.
Well, and again, and one of the other things that came out was President-elect Biden has been talking about how many executive orders he's going to pass, and I don't know what the number is, but it's somewhere in the lots, right? He's like, day one, we're going to lay
there's a laundry list.
So, and you got one side of the aisle going, wait a minute, you're not allowed to do that. Like, that's not constitutional. You're not supposed to do these things. And then the other side of the aisle was screaming the same thing back in 2016.
Yeah, they were.
Was screaming the same thing back in 2012. Was screaming the same thing back in 2008. And when President Bush really started doing it, almost kind of for the first time, at least in my living memory, of taking advantage of that executive order sort of thing. So the weird thing is we're not even passing laws anymore, right? We're just making executive orders to make things happen, which last time I checked, the whole point of having those 3 pillars of government, right, were the checks and balances. So
yeah, there's a reason why you've got a legislature.
And the same people, it's maddening because the same people, frustrating really, the same people that we know, again, in our monkey sphere going, no, Trump, you're not allowed to do these electoral,
executive
sorry,
orders.
why did I say electoral? You're not allowed to do these executive orders, but flip around and say, yay, Biden, you do these executive orders.
Oh, yeah, and the same people who, when Trump was passing out executive orders, I was sitting there going to some of my monkey sphere people, saying, hey, I realize that you guys really want this to happen, but if he goes down this way, it's going to set a precedent. And when you look back at the last 8 years when Obama was in office, anytime he tried to do anything like this, you all were up in arms saying,
that's right.
Where's the consistency here?
Right.
Well, but if he doesn't do this now, then it's not gonna happen, and
right.
We've got to make sure this gets done now. And it's all fed off of the sensationalism, competition, and the fear.
Well, and as far as that stuff goes, the flipping back and forth, a friend of mine reminded me of something I said a while ago, is when you're looking at those sorts of things, as far as like the executive orders flipping back and forth, you have to make a decision based on principle, not on preference.
Yeah, or pragmatism. Principle and pragmatism is like,
Well,
they're like, this is really going to help all of these other things that we got going on. I'm like, yeah, but
preference.
What
because
happens?
I prefer this guy, so I want him to delay these out, right?
Yeah.
Because the pragmatic part is of course I'm gonna take the easiest, the shortest path, right? Like that's lightning or electricity does it, water does it.
If we don't get it done now,
right? And really more of what I'm talking about is
and it comes back to fear too, because if I don't get it done now, then they're gonna do it next time.
Again, the preference is I want to do it this way because it's easier and my guy can do it, so it's perfectly fine. Anyway.
This is what I want, so it makes it right.
That's right. And what's the principle? The principle is if you're going to enact something like that, you really should enact a law or make it go through the process. Let it be debated. Let it be talked about in front of folks.
Or be ready for it to get rolled back next time.
Let all your lobbyists make a bill and stuff 700 pages worth of pork fat in there so they can all get anyway. So 2000, the conversation in my mind moved from I like him and I don't approve to I hate that man and everything he stands for. Yeah. Right. So think about like even, and I was talking to another friend of mine who she's Democrat. And again, just to be super clear, I'm neither. But I go with all the
You're obviously a Republican.
All the political compass memes. I'm a Marxist. All the political compass memes is funny because they're all actually they're anyway. But I asked her. I said you didn't vote for Bush, right? And she's like, no, not at all. I voted for Gore. And I said, okay. I said, but did you hate Bush? She's like, no. I actually think he was a very intelligent. He seemed like a nice man. Okay. Did you? But Trump is awful. And I'm like, okay. I'm not debating that. He may be right. But like Biden, he doesn't seem awful to me.
I think it's a point of fact now.
No, yeah,
Trump is awful.
I think so.
Yeah.
But like Biden, he doesn't seem like a terrible person to me. He's a 47-year politician, which means he's probably awful. But
I don't know. The sniffy stuff is awful.
He doesn't. That's creepy, dude.
Awful creepy.
Yeah, it's awful creepy and weird. But it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe is it like a nervous tick that he has or something?
Maybe. What about whenever he he like licked his wife's finger or something like that.
Yeah, he bit his wife's finger, which
Something
is
weird. It was like,
But again, it's like he doesn't seem detestable, right?
Yeah.
But you have people that just detest this guy. And
Mhm.
instead of, and again, is like even while President Trump was in office, and then there were some folks with President Obama in office where people are like, you know what, I hate that man. How do you hate the man? Like, you've never met the man before.
Yeah.
I just hate him and everything he stands for. And like, how do we get there? Like, we got from, hey, you know what, that's president. I disagree with him. I'm not really like what he's doing, to this, I hate this person. Like, I don't know.
It's conditioning, dude. It's propaganda. That's how it works.
And you've got this, I think what happened is, like, is that conditioning, is a part of this. We get bombarded with every single detail of the president's life, everything that they're doing, everything they're talking about. Gosh bless, especially with the Twitter. I remember President Obama in 2008, he said, you're going to have to pry this BlackBerry
right? Yeah.
out of my hands,
Yep.
right? And someone did. They took it away from him because he's like, I'm going to be the most open president in history.
Yeah.
And we're like, and he wasn't. Like, he didn't do hardly any press conferences. He didn't do, like, he was very, very, very quiet. That was a really nice time, actually. Like, I'm thinking about it, that was really nice.
Yeah,
The
the only
last-
time you saw him whenever he was making some sort of White House press corps conference or the press corps dinner that they do or
or you
something
get to
like
see
that.
it-
It was rare.
Or you get to see a cool shot of him playing basketball or walking with him, his wife and the kids, and
Or
walking
on a
the
late
dog or
night
something.
talk show or something.
Right, which felt a lot more like a late night talk show. I was just thinking like President Clinton when he's playing the saxophone, right? So you've got those sorts of moments versus this 24/7, 3 a.m. I don't know, drug-induced Twitter,
Rants, yeah.
yeah. And it's like, do we need that?
Tirades.
So I guess, and part of it, I was like, man, I really wanted to hear more about Obama's thoughts, and then it's like, I really want to hear a lot less of Trump's thoughts. So you've got this back and forth of like, where's the balance? And it feels like that not only is there no secrets left, but it's like the door's been knocked open, the walls all got knocked down, and we're sitting there, to get crude, but it's almost like you're sitting there watching the guy, when he's going to the bathroom. It's like, I don't need to know all this information, okay?
Yeah.
Give me the high level stuff, because the whole point of a representative republic, which is what we have, supposed to have anyway, is
Democratically elected constitutional republic.
the whole point of having a representative is I don't have to follow this 24/7, because turns out I have things to do
Yeah. So I appoint someone
to go do it for
to
me.
go represent me.
Yeah, somebody who's supposed to be smart and understand how all these things work. This is, I don't know, it's turned into a popularity contest. And again, there's, like I said before, ratings.
Well, on the yeah. I was
Ratings,
going to say,
profit.
according to the political side of it, that particular office that we're discussing, the presidency, is not supposed to be that powerful.
Well, it's
Never
not-
was intended to be.
It's not supposed to have executive
so-
order. They're
not
not supposed
supposed
to
to-
be able to go to war.
Not supposed to be a king.
They're not, that's right. That wasn't that kind of the whole point.
That was the whole point. I distinctly remember that when Washington, whenever they said, "Hey, we want to make you king," he said, "I think you all have the wrong idea.
Yeah.
I have no interest in being your king."
Do you remember this
Moreover,
whole war that
yeah,
we just went through? The whole point of it, yeah,
Yeah, we
remember
don't
that?
want this again. Stay as far away from that as possible.
yeah. I think the Jews got warned about that way back in Kings and Chronicles and stuff, right? When
Yeah,
they
most of
chose-
the Old Testament was God saying, "Hey,
You
y'all
don't
don't
want a
want a king. I'm your king."
right? No, we want people to be a
Now
king, and this is what we
we
have.
want a king like those guys have. We want a king like them.
Yeah, look at how they're doing. Not very good.
Every so many years, they had to learn that lesson again, though, and I unfortunately, I think we're no exception.
So you've got the ratings, you got the profit, and then you got the labels. And the labels was that person's left, that person's right. That person's this is when
That's the first thing you got to do. That's the first thing you got to do if you're going to get a good propaganda campaign started, is you have to clearly define who the bad guys are, and then once you get that label on them, you stop looking them as people. If I can just call them Taliban, or if I can just call them VC.
Well, I was thinking like President Trump, he had a nickname for somebody who was it Sleepy Joe or something? Was that it? Yeah, I'm getting nods. It was like Sleepy Joe.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you call him Sleepy Joe, and now he's sleepy. Like, what does that mean? He's lazy.
Hey, you turn people into a caricature of themselves,
Right.
or like you said, a condensed label of somebody instead of calling them a person.
Right.
Instead of saying, "This is my neighbor," right?
Right.
This is, you're a liberal, or you're you're just a conservative. You're a Nazi,
And
right?
again, it brings on all these different characteristics that may or may not even apply. Probably don't really
No.
apply to you.
No, 90% don't. I mean, all of these labels, the libtard and Nazi and all these other things, those
Alt-right.
those are the super extreme examples that you're applying to people who simply prefer this option over the other and have pulled the lever for the shiniest of two options.
Well,
I'm trying to keep it super PG because this is the top rated evangelical in-flight magazine review podcast in America today. I derailed you, didn't I?
I was like, I don't know. I'm trying to follow him. Like, what the heck is he talking about? I'm trying to think of Sky. Was it Sky Miles or no? Was it called the Skyzine or whatever? I don't know. I don't think it's even in the airlines anymore.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, were you gonna order all the duty-free stuff?
Yeah. No. It's all the crazy gadgets and stuff that you would never buy anywhere else or even think that you would potentially want, and it's like 5 times the price that you find it anywhere.
Man, I really need it.
But you
I
sit
really
there that
need
whole time
an
and you stare
elbow
at it.
massager that takes 28 D-cell batteries.
Right.
This will really come in handy for my next flight.
Yeah, or like a magazine holder waterfall or something like that. Like it's something weird. It's always time, and it's cool. Don't get me wrong. And you think about it, and like sharper image exactly. Of course, the virus fighters. Do you put the bleach in the top, like right there, and it just sprays it all over your face?
Got hydrochloroquine right in the top.
Yeah.
You got to put a mask over it too, though. Sorry.
So left versus right, liberals
Okay,
versus conservatives.
I've hit this twice, so I'm catching up to you.
I keep banging on it too,
Yeah.
man. Republicans, Democrats, and before, think about this.
Potatoes, tomato.
Remember before, though, it was war and anti-war. Think about that in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right? It was war versus anti-war, big government little versus little government, or freedom versus tyranny. Like, those are the things we used to talk about because those are, and what's the difference? Like, I'm telling you, you're a conservative. Okay? I'm not saying that to you. But if I say, hey, you're a conservative, I'm labeling you specifically as this thing, as this label. In this label, it's going to mean something different to you than it's going to be to me, right? It's going to be different because me as a conservative, like I don't know, I don't even know what I think about conservatives.
I may have a positive connotation of this based on my experience, knowledge, upbringing, everything else.
Or I'm going to be negative about it because of whatever reasons, or yeah, you see, you know what?
The way you say it,
right?
When you say it,
right,
may bring up a whole other thing,
right? But that's a label based on a bunch of. It's not. It's just it's a label that you're pinning on a person. So you're calling a person. You're building this caricature.
You're dehumanizing.
Versus freedom. Like what's freedom? That's an idea. It's an ideal. It's like a value. It's different. Anti-war. It's a thought. Like so now we're not debating over thoughts or not. I can point at you and say you're a liberal, or I can point at you and say you're a Nazi, and you're like, no, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not racist. I'm not homophobic. Like I'm not these things. You're throwing labels at me, and it's like, well, and we're not talking anymore. Now I'm just yelling at you.
Now we're insulting.
Yeah, I'm insulting and yelling at you.
Yeah, and it. I don't know. I can pretend it's better or it was better in the past, but who really knows? I mean, we were up marginally there when we were there during the 2000s and
but at least you're
90s.
At least you're conversating over ideas, right? So the idea is like thinking,
which would be the ideal, but most people are so unequipped for such conversations,
right?
That when you say something like, "Well, I wouldn't consider myself anti-war. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. I'm against foreign expeditionary."
And there's a part of that that's okay, I understand, which is a part of why we are supposed to elect representatives that are trustworthy and yada, 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 so that they can pay attention to all that.
Yep.
I remember, who was it when they got asked about Benghazi or something, and they're like, he wasn't really sure. Was it Rand Paul? It was somebody that was on, it was a couple elections back when they said, hey, this news thing just happened like 5 seconds ago. What are your thoughts on it? And the guy was like, I hadn't heard of that. I haven't been briefed on that yet. I don't know what it is. And they're like, haha, you idiot. You don't know anything. And it was like
Gary Johnson with Aleppo?
No, he was an idiot. So it was Gary Johnson with Aleppo. That's exactly right. So you know what? I just invalidated my point because dude was an idiot. So never mind. That stands. But again, preference versus
Socially
principle, right?
liberal and fiscally conservative.
Yeah, my preference would be to beat on Gary Johnson, but principally
low hanging fruit, Chris.
Yeah, principally that's not okay. It's like maybe he wasn't paying attention because he was, I don't know, doing something else. Like you and I shouldn't be paying attention to all this mess because
Maybe
we
he
have work
was
to do. We
worried-
got families to raise.
Yeah.
We got food to put on the table. We've got, projects around the house. Like my car's, the starter's dead. Like I got to work on that, right? Should I be up to date on Aleppo within seconds of it actually happening?
Yeah, I think that maybe I don't want to. Man, this sounds weird. It sounds like I'm defending Gary Johnson,
Don't.
but he may have been concerned more with domestic policy than foreign policy, and I'm not sure that that's the wrong position to have.
He was probably high.
That's probably a good point.
Yeah. So anyway, and to be fair, if you're running for president, you should probably know what Aleppo is. But whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe not. But my point is, again, principle versus preference, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole point of having representatives who don't have to pay attention all the time. What is my point? But it's a thought, right? It's a thought of it's a thought versus like anti-war. What does that mean to you? How do you feel about that? What anti-war against whom? Like,
Tell me more. Explain your position on
what
that.
are your thoughts on that, right?
Yeah.
And how many times do you get?
We don't do that now.
I don't have time for that. I don't have this because I'm such and such, right? And it's
I'm
met with a label.
Already firmly entrenched in my position here. The fact that you aren't parroting the same tells me that you're on the wrong side.
Because to sit and think about it and to talk about it, it takes time. It takes brain cycles. It takes effort because you got to go and read.
There's also the fear that you may have a better position than me. And if that happens, then I have to either admit to you that you're correct, and I have to be honest with people within my social circles that my position has changed, or I have to lie to you and myself and continue the falsehood. I'd rather not do that.
You start approaching that whole personal growth thing, and that kind of scary and hard.
Yeah. So it's well, think about this. If most of your personal identity is wrapped up in these positions and this team and stuff, and all of a sudden you have an awakening that one of these long-held sacred cows needs to be slaughtered, what does that do to your social group? What does that do to your family group?
I feel like you're talking about Zariwas in the history of Egypt and how the Sphinx is more than.
No, I'm
No,
getting
is that? Oh,
I'm getting at that there's a real fear in people's minds that if I change my opinion about this, I'm going to lose friends and family members because of it. I think that's one of the reasons why they get so deeply entrenched into this and will outright refuse to discuss it and will resort to throwing rocks.
and the crazy part is, and this is like the whole point of this is, or the whole point of when I started this is, how did it get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
How did it get to the point where not only are we not discussing the things, not only are we not discussing the ideas and the positions and stuff like that, but now we're not discussing them, but we're angry about them.
Yeah.
We're angry about you even asking about it. Like, how do we get there? And in my estimation, you've got this, again, this rating driven profit monster who has got a talking head on one side, a talking head on the other side, and they're yelling at each other on TV. And it's one of those, what is it? Art mimics real life.
Life imitates art.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, it's the total opposite. And then you start having that, and all of a sudden people are yelling at each other like, you know what? The talking head that I liked better said this. And if you're not saying this, then I should just yell. And again, these people, I am blaming them, actually.
Good grief, when you get on half of these things and
You get 5 seconds to talk about your opinion.
Yeah, so they end up just yelling back and forth at each other, and oftentimes the host plays up the fact that this person yelled more or louder, so they win.
Right.
And then we're surprised when people get in conversations, and you're like, "Oh yeah, let's talk about your ideas about this," and you get yelled at or insulted somehow for having the opposing view, or even questioning their view.
Let me go back. I found some more facts. So that, and probably everybody knows this, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
During the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton, she was the 5th president to win popular vote but lose the election.
Candidate.
Yeah, I actually put president on there. I'm sorry, President Hillary.
Wishful thinking.
Sounds weird, I guess. But
liberal.
But she was the 5th. She was the 5th to win the popular vote but lose the election. Gore was I think Gore was the 4th. And one of the things that I thought about, and you and I have talked about this a lot, about the voting and stuff, It says votes. I don't know. The note I wrote down here is votes are not supposed to be popular, because popular is democracy. We start talking about democracy. What's democracy? Democracy is majority rules, right?
Mhm.
So when you start looking at these elections, right, you start looking at these, and there's one hand where
Democracy is essentially mob rule.
mob rule, and there's one thing you say, well, if the people want this, and that's what they want, then you give it to them, right? If it's overwhelming majority of 80%, then you go give it to them, right?
That's where that constitutional republic side of it comes in and balances it.
And that's
supposedly,
that's bad, right? The constitutional republic is terrible.
well,
right?
it just gets in the way of progress.
I think so. But what I always say is
But yeah, it should be. I mean, according to the original design, that those laws restrict that Constitution restricts not only the politicians from doing crazy things, but to even stop the public from pushing one direction too hard.
the most
To bring
PC
balance to the force, Chris.
the most PC way I can think about it is it's two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right? The sheep has less say in there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the sheep's say is not valid, right? So it's part of it is protecting the minority, which would be the sheep in that instance, from the mob rule, which is why the whole Anyway,
Protecting the minorities is important especially when you're the minority, right?
yeah, well, it's very
Yeah.
important because again, in this case, and as minorities, we're not talking about sheep, we're talking about people, right?
Yeah. And
So
anytime the political pendulum swings one way or another, you may find yourself as the minority. So you gotta, or at least you should, be conscious of that.
principle over preference, right?
Amen.
Oh gosh, I've got a whole note in here. It turns out that plants may have feelings. Have you heard about this? Yeah, there's a team of scientists. I'm not gonna. I got a link here somewhere, but there's a team of scientists that found that plants in their tests emit a high frequency distress sound when they're in pain or under stress. The scientists used tobacco and tomato plants, and they emitted ultrasonic sounds between 200 and 100 kilohertz when they were short on water or their stem was cut. I don't know why that's in the middle of all this, but I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating too. The fungal network that connects plants is something that's fascinating too. I remember hearing a NPR episode called "The Wood Wide Web" or something like that not long ago, and it talked about how that within the forest they'll transmit nutrients back and forth to each other across this fungal network in the forest floor, and that they'll even, if one plant is diseased, that they will isolate that plant.
Well, the aspen trees,
Interesting stuff.
aspen trees will do that as well. When we were out in Colorado, we were looking that up. I actually sent you a link. But the aspen trees,
I remember you telling me about that.
yeah, where they'll actually, and it's kind of neat because what they'll do is not only will they withdraw the roots. That was not what I said. I'm sorry. They'll withdraw the roots from that tree that's diseased, for example.
We had no segue there. For
I'm
what it's
sorry.
worth.
It was just in my notes, dude. I was just looking.
That was abrupt. That's got to
I'm
be
sorry.
jarring for anybody listening.
No, nobody's listening.
All of our
I wasn't even
listeners.
listening. But it was weird because it was like, yeah,
I just took down NPR's website by mentioning that, didn't I?
yeah, you did.
Son
You
of
took
a
down
gun.
Google because
Son of a
people
gun.
Googled NPR and figured out what it was first, so Google went down.
Sorry, guys.
But I was thinking, so yeah, aspens will do that, and here's the craziest part: is like if there's a plant that's diseased, right? If there's a tree that's diseased in the aspen, it'll retract the roots because the aspens is one tree. Okay, let me back up.
How do we tie that back into the whole conversation, though? Can we
yeah,
isolate groups of people that we think are bad and just cut them off?
Is that what I was going after?
Maybe.
It says they believe this will alter the
definitely
way.
see some of that happening right now, don't we?
It says they believe this will alter the way we view the plant kingdom and could lead to PETA creating a new group that correctly showcases the vile and evil natures of vegans and also could offer some breakthroughs in farming.
Hold on. Are we going to start seeing animal-based plant products
They need to be protected.
for vegans?
David, they need because you got to be the cruelty to.
I'm really confused
Plants.
right now. Bless you.
I don't know why that's in there. I don't know why that's in there. It was just right in the middle of anything. But I'm kind of tired of talking about it anyway.
Yeah.
Not the plants, the other stuff. Because now I've got notes on Supreme Court, like the election for it came down to the Supreme Court Oh, this was 2000.
Yeah, to get to what I was talking about with the plants, I think there's
Sorry.
something valid there. I think there's something valid there because, like, where the plants would do that, is that something that we should be interested in doing, isolating and cutting off things that are disagreeable, does that negatively impact free speech, for instance? Especially when you've got, it's one thing for a private entity to do something. Like for me to say, hey, I've got this restaurant and I only allow people in here that have blue hats on or something, whatever. But if I'm a major news outlet and I have been funded by public money or given significant tax breaks and things like that, or if I'm a senator trying to pass laws to make sure that the press doesn't propagate falsehoods, does that not hamper free speech? And is that acceptable to keep from getting some of the results that we've seen lately?
Well, one of the things that I've always heard, and I had a friend as back in, I know, it's unbelievable.
You got a friend?
Probably not, more of an acquaintance, I imagine. But I remember a friend of mine.
I'm sure if you asked them, it would just be an acquaintance.
Lived in France, and definitely an acquaintance. Because I don't remember her name. I can't remember her name. But she lived in France, and I remember having a conversation. It was over the internet, so she's just an internet friend. And
World of Warcraft?
EverQuest, actually. Even worse. Right?
Nerd!
Yeah. I wish to say I got better, but I haven't. I did stop MMOs, though, because it's drugs. It really is.
Yeah.
It's an addiction. Anyway, one of the things that she said to me, and this is something that I never really got out of my mind, she says, you Americans, this is how she put it, you Americans are the most over-propagandized people on the planet, and you don't even know it.
We are.
And that was strange because she started showing, and again, this was around 2000, like 99, 95 through 2000. She said, it was probably later than that. It was probably 1999 on, right? But one of the things that she said, I'll see a newscast over here that, and again, this is her perspective, right? I'll see a newscast over here that says this, and you guys will see something that says this. And this was back, of course, before the World Wide Web was so ubiquitous and everybody was on it and stuff like that. But she says, you're over propagandized. And the crazy part is if you go and you look and you watch any of the major news networks, I mean, dude, you just know.
And you're sitting there thinking, no, you just don't like freedom of the press.
Right.
Deal with that.
You got Fox News on the right that obviously propagandized to the right. You got CNN and MSNBC on the left.
Didn't that really stoke the fire of the competitive aspect of what we were talking about? I mean, when Fox News came about, their whole thing was fair and balanced, and then quickly after shock and awe and stuff, when it became very clear that one group was anti-war and one group was totally for it. And
well, where's your customer base at that point? Again, you going back to profit, right? Where's your customer base? Because if you've got all these people, so for example, if you are fair and balanced, okay, and you got a bunch of people that are looking to validate their already perceived notions, and they're looking at, nobody likes to be told they're wrong. I don't like to be told I'm wrong.
Confirmation biases is a thing.
Right. So they go up and nobody wants to sit there. And again, man, like a lot of times you turn on the news, you just turn on the news and you zone out.
I'd rather just get in an echo chamber, Chris.
And it's so much easier and it's more comfortable to do that. So if you're watching Fox and it is fair and balanced, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but if that's your goal and you've got a lefty talking head on there and a righty talking head on there and they're blah, 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 blah,
Hannity
blah, blah.
and Combs, right?
Right. Yeah, Hannity and Combs. That was actually fun to watch. And for what it's worth, Combs, absolutely a lefty. Hannity, no doubt, right?
Yep.
But you look at that and you say, well, every time Combs talked, right, you're making the right mad. Every time Hannity talked, you're making the left mad. So what's left going to do? They're going to go over to CNN or they're going to go over to MSNBC and they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to watch this because it's more comfortable. Don't challenge my thoughts and opinions. It's more comfortable to do this. I want to be comfortable. I don't want to think. Dude, I just spent all day at work actually doing stuff, right? Maybe I don't know what you're doing at work, but whatever. I just spent all day at work doing stuff.
Punching out widgets. Or
maybe I spent all day at school, or I'm sitting there doing my job. I just want to come home and relax. I don't want to think. I don't want to hear arguments, blah, blah, blah. I want the comfort of the things that I know about. Tell me about what's going on in the country. Don't challenge me. Don't jar me. Don't any of that.
I want my biases
confirmed. The left figured that out faster than the right.
Yep.
The right finally figured it out, and now you've got the right and you've got the left news. So you figure out which one makes you feel better, and you watch those, and that's where your ratings come from. There's your profit. And I think what happened is you get, because we went through this at work for a while. I went through this at work. It was hysterical because you got where we work, there's TVs out in the public, right? There's TVs out in the public lobby. Yeah. And it was funny because like this was back when it was still total peon at work, right? But you've got this thing where
You're still a total peon at work.
that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
I literally said it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
still are. Yeah. So if you don't run if you don't run the company, right? Even if you do, you still got the board. Even if you're the board, you still got the anyway. But
Go on.
I was charged with having something on the TV. Okay, so I'm flipping through, and we could get one or two different news stations, right? So I was always told by corporate to say, you know what, you have to put on CNN. So okay, so all of a sudden this director comes and he's like, hey, why CNN always on there? You need to put up Fox News. I'm like, okay, you get that after a while. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll put up Fox, not a problem. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I got another director saying, why are you putting up Fox News? You should put up MSNBC. And it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And like seriously, it was a period of about 2 months where it was directors, which are several levels above me at the time, back and forth telling me, you do this, you do this. I literally had to go to the head of HR, and this is a gigantic company.
Give me some directive.
And say, which way am I going to go, right? And eventually, I think eventually what I did was we had 5 TVs in there. I put one on MSNBC. I put one on CNN. I put one on Fox. I had one on Animal Planet because that's awesome.
And
I had one on
ESPN, right?
ESPN, but I had the audio on C-SPAN, and that was hysterical. I thought it was so funny because the audio didn't match anything that was on there. And I threatened him too. I was like, you come back to me and mess with it, you're going to be watching C-SPAN all the time. You're just going to deal with it, right? But
because honestly, that is probably the most fair and balanced.
it's just,
Sadly.
yeah, it is, and it's boring. But actually, no, I like watching C-SPAN after a while. But again, C-SPAN, you turn it on and you zone out and you go to sleep, right?
It's kind of like watching baseball.
Yeah, same thing.
You just fall asleep in the first inning, wake up in the ninth, and find out who won.
Wait, the third quarter, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know anything about sports ball.
Yeah, third quarter, and that's when the people do the penalty shots. So anyway, so but it was this left versus right thing, and that's where this, for me, that's where this whole thing came from. Where all of a sudden now it's not even a who'd you vote for, what side are you on? Mm-hmm. What do you mean what side am I on? I'm American. I'm on side America.
You're not one of them.
And even that for a while was not okay. You couldn't say you're on side America because we were bad for a while. I guess like just being American was bad for a while. It might still be. I don't know. I'm probably behind the times here. But you've got this left versus right, and exactly, you're the other now. Mm-hmm. So like, you're not even part of my country anymore because you know what? You're one of.
God help you if you choose to not pick a side.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, if you choose not to pick one of those two sides, right? Because you can pick a side, but it doesn't matter because now you're just wasting your vote and you're just wasting your thoughts and all this sort of thing. But you've got this weird dichotomy where instead of just voting and just being done with it and then arguing about what the government's doing, because we all love doing that, right? Now you're arguing about the man because we haven't had a female president as of right now. So you're arguing about the man making the decisions and everything that the man is doing, but now you're arguing about the right and the left. You're arguing about the Republicans and the Democrats.
Conservatives and liberals.
And which side are you on? Are you one of those? Like, because I can't talk to you if you're one of those. And you start seeing this where people start dividing themselves, which is so weird, right? Because like 1984, right? Let's go back for a second. 1984, Ray Bradbury, right? You're sitting there, Ray Bradbury, right? Did I get that wrong?
I've never heard that name before in my life.
Ray Bradbury. You know, he was The Martian. He wrote who wrote 1984? You know what that is, right? You know what I'm talking about. It was a book.
Ayn Rand, right?
No. I'm pretty sure it was
Walter Cronkite.
George Orwell. Oh my gosh, it was George Orwell.
Was Orwell.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thanks for letting me hang on that.
Right.
Ray Bradbury, he was another.
Who wrote
science
Brave
fiction.
New World, Chris?
Aldous Huxley.
Good
That
job.
one I do know.
Good job.
Okay, so I'm just mildly autistic. So when you look
That's
at
a word for it.
When you look at 1984, one of the funny things for me in 1984 was that the government, if you remember, one of the things that they did, you had your 2 minutes of hate, right, every morning, because who came in and installed the screens and the cameras and the microphones so they could spy on you, right? The government.
Mm-hmm.
They came in and they did it. And this was in 1984 Orwell. They came in and they did it. But we've done that to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We've got our Alexas, we've got our Hey Siris, we've got our Googles, we've got all that stuff. We've got our Samsung TVs that listen to us and send everything directly to and seriously, Siri's, she's listening right now. To my personal NSA
Hey
agent.
Siri.
No, stop. I don't want to talk to you right now. And I apologize to my personal NSA agent how boring I am, because whoever's listening to all the nonsense that I'm into, it's just dumb. Go ahead, research me. I'm really boring. But it's weird because we invited all this stuff into us. And one of the things, like if you think of Brave New World, one of the things that they did was they divided everybody. Like the government came in and divided everybody. We don't need them to do that. We're doing that ourselves.
Well, like you said, engineered. I think you're correct when you say it's engineered or orchestrated to keep us divided. And the motivation for that,
Profit. Yeah.
Yep.
And
my ratings stay nice and high whenever I've got you guys at each other's throats because you all can't get enough of what's going on this week.
that's right. And again, I just be really clear. I'm not blaming the government for, listen, I wouldn't, that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of intelligence. It takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of hard work to do what happened. I'm definitely not laying that on the feet of the government. I don't think the government could do something like that if they tried. Maybe they could. I mean, well, you know what they did when they threw Asian Americans into concentration camps back in World War II. But so maybe they can do that sort of stuff. But in this case, I don't think they did. I think this was the media. I think when you look at the big media, when you look at the CNN and the Foxes and stuff like that, they saw a profit center. And then with that profit center was this divide, because how do you create permanent ratings? Because we do go to war constantly. Like the United States is in war and everywhere, right?
Big business, man.
Yeah.
Big business.
But after a while, especially after and then during 9/11 stuff, when people start peeling back the covers on that, and they're like, "Hey, wait a minute, what is this whole Iran-Contra thing? Like, what's going on there?" People started getting mad.
Who's Ollie North?
People started getting mad and saying, "Should we have been involved in this to begin with?" And all of a sudden, questions starts happening. Right? Hold on a second. Maybe those ratings aren't as good as the ratings we're going to get if that guy's a righty. Did you know that guy was over on the right? Did you know that guy over there, Scotty? Scotty's on the right. Did you know? You know what he doesn't believe in because he's on the right? This list of things over here. Did you go ask Scotty? No, I don't need to. He's one of those filthy conservatives. We don't need to talk to him about it.
I can already tell.
That guy on the left over there, do you know what they believe in? They believe in all this liberal nonsense. You can't listen to the thing he said because that libtard is just so soaked in liberal nonsense and he's one of those bedwetters and bleeding hearts and stuff. They're not going to think logically. That's not what they do. They don't think logically because they're liberal. Well, did you go there and talk to that liberal? Did you go there and talk to, like, our buddy Kevin? Did you go talk to Kevin? You know what? Don't ever tell him I said this. Kevin's pretty smart.
He's a real person too.
Yeah, he is. And Kevin's really smart, and he's thoughtful. And when you actually sit and talk to him, it's like a lot of the things, misperceptions or misconceptions you have of what a liberal is, and I don't even know if he would label himself that, but sure, a lot of people would. They don't apply to Kevin. Strangely enough, it turns out that Kevin's a person, and people
more than a label
are a little more complicated than left and right.
But that makes it really hard for me, Chris, to be able to identify the enemy and to throw the appropriate pejoratives at them.
That's a good point, because everybody listening, if you're on the right, you can't be mad at Kevin unless I say Kevin's a liberal, or actually Kevin's a conservative. Well, what is Kevin? Do you know? Are we sure we know what Kevin is? We don't know, but you can't be mad at him because you don't know him. But it's easier to be mad at somebody if you label him. You say label him, and I don't like that label, and then done. And that's what's been done to us.
We brought the mechanisms into our life. You know, we pay to have the cable pumped in.
Yeah, we finally cut the cord at the house, man.
Thank goodness.
Oh, it was nice. Now,
but we do.
Good.
We pay for our internet connection. We pay to have our cell phones handy.
Hey, don't challenge my internet.
Yeah.
Did you know? And this is just something like, I don't know if you guys have Samsung.
But I can imagine. You remember how like.
Hold on, let me scroll for a second. You
Go
guys
ahead.
have a Samsung TV?
Yeah.
Did you know that Samsung TV has got a, what's it called, Chloe? The channel, what's it called? True TV. Yeah, they've got a True TV that is a streaming internet service. The Samsung puts out, it's a streaming internet service. I just want to throw this out there. They have a channel that is pretty much literally all unsolved mysteries, right? Like it's like all day long. It's old episodes of Unsolved Mysteries. Huh? I can't hear you.
They also got a really good one called Fail Army.
Oh, no,
and
that's
it's
one of
my
my favorites.
favorite.
Yeah, good point. She's over there mouthing it too. Yeah, Fail Army's hysterical. And there's one with cats, like it's all about
Planet.
animals.
Animal Collective, Pet
Yep.
Collective.
And these are all like little clips and stuff coming over the YouTubes, and all you need is an internet connection. You don't need a now granted, obviously the Chinese are watching all that stuff and they're taking all that information and they're using it to spy on me or whatever. Guess what? I love unsolved mysteries, so use that against me, China.
Deal with it.
But it's neat because it's like it's not technically free because, like you said, you still have to buy internet service. But it's pretty cool, and there's a ton of channels. It's just like if you had one of your local Comcast or whatever, and you can go through and you can select all the channels or whatever. Like there's a ton on there, and they do have commercials. They don't always load. If you're doing something like Piehole, they might not load at all. Just saying.
Yeah,
potentially.
It's like it reminds me of during the last election when Trump was talking about building the wall. He said, "And I'm going to get Mexico to pay for it." Remember that?
Aw.
So they've got our
Poor Mexico.
propaganda machine set up, all the different varieties of them. And they're like, the best part is we're going to get these people to pay for them too.
Oh, so
they totally did.
what you're saying is we're paying for propaganda by getting cable TV and stuff like that.
We're double paying for it because we're paying the taxes for the groups that are producing it. And
yeah.
You brought up 1984, and there was an old post like from about 5 months ago or something that I read.
1984 by Mary Shelley.
By Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
Bram Stoker's 1984. We're going to be messing people so up.
I'm sorry, I'm so dumb. It's not my fault I was born this way.
This person named Neil Postman summed up kind of everybody was focusing on 1984. Remember people saying, we're living through 1984 right now, when shortly after Trump got elected, if you remember.
Right.
And he brought up this kind of juxtaposition between the two. He says, quote, hold on, let me get my Dan Carlin voice.
Quote.
Neil Postman sums it up. Quote.
That's really good, dude.
Thanks. What Orwell feared. I'm not going to do it anymore.
No, please don't. But that was really good. I'm proud. I'm impressed.
What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared that we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the fillies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumblepuppy. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate would ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love would ruin us. I thought that was a pretty good breakdown.
That is a good breakdown. That's a good
kind
quote,
of what
too.
we got going on, because we're so inundated with all this stuff that the idea of actually digging into somebody else's thoughts is irrelevant. We're not going to do that. The idea of learning about something through books or whatever media you're wanting to receive information through, why would I want to do that when I can watch these cats? Look at these cats, Chris, right?
Are they playing piano?
Yeah, so we've got so many distractions, and we're so involved in the sport of it all that we're not concerned with what's actually at stake.
Right. And when you started reading that, it made me think of another book that was called The Time Machine, that was written by H.G. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
And what you had is I feel we're in such a culture, I feel like I want to say spoiler alert, but it literally was written in 1895. So
if you
whatever.
haven't caught up on that one yet,
it's kind of not my fault. I'm going to butcher this, but you had two factions.
Han Solo dies.
You had the dude. So hold on a second. No. You just scrolled me. So I saw a meme the other day.
I'm sorry. I want you to finish your H.G. Wells thing.
I'll get there. It's on my screen here. But listen. So Han Solo. Okay, think about this. Vader. No. Oh gosh. Darth Maul. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
killed, thrown down a well, came back. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's
Vader?
the next one? Not Vader. Vader wasn't. The Emperor was thrown down a well, came back. Right. There was another.
Mace Windu.
Mace, was he?
He hasn't come back yet, though.
No.
He was thrown out the window, remember?
Well, yeah, but he wasn't thrown down a giant shaft, right? Darth Maul was thrown down a shaft.
He played Shaft, though.
The Emperor was thrown down a shaft, right? Han Solo was also killed.
I can't
and
believe you're
thrown
going to
down a
let that
shaft.
one go.
And Han Solo might come back still. That's what I was trying to get at. I was trying to get that.
Mhm.
Because those two guys, and there's one more that got killed and thrown down a shaft, and they all came back. Darth Maul came back. The Emperor came back. There's one more that I'm forgetting, and then there's Han Solo came back.
Mhm.
So, no, Han Solo might come back. That's it. So Han Solo might not be dead. That's
Luke
my
fell
guess.
down a shaft.
That's right. He fell on top of the Millennium Falcon. But
Mhm.
these are all bad. You know, they're all bad guys. Actually, the ones I was thinking about were all bad guys, except for Han Solo. Maybe Han Solo was a Sith. Anyway,
I don't know. If you watch the new trilogy, Luke was kind of a bad guy.
there's no new trilogy.
Oh, good point. Good point.
There's the one.
Thank you for rescuing me from that reality.
Yeah, I think there's the Force Awakens, with the activist leader Finn, and the Amazing Rey, and then they kind of stopped after that. There's Rogue One. I remember that, and the Awesome
Remember
Western
Ray,
that
right?
they did.
You mean Mary Sue?
Mary Sue. That's right.
Yeah.
And but that was the last movie. I'm still waiting on 8 and 9 because the other ones don't exist.
Mhm.
Anyway, in the Time Traveler, you had two factions. You had the
How do you feel about Kathleen Kennedy?
who?
Exactly.
The Eloi were a society of small, elegant, childlike adults, and then you had the Morlocks.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, whatever. I can spoil a book from 1895. The Eloi, this is the one that the Traveler first runs into. Are these sort of, they're happy. They kind of live in Xanadu. They live in this perfect utopia where the food just
Oblivious.
comes. They eat, they're happy, they
Yep.
do whatever they want to do all day long, right? But then under the surface are these other society called the Morlocks, and these had been driven underground by the Eloi like centuries ago, or forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the Morlocks will come up and actually
Snatch people.
they'll snatch the Eloi and they'll eat them, like they actually eat them, like that's the Morlocks' food. But because the Eloi, they don't pay attention. They just do what they're gonna do. When somebody vanishes, that's just what happens. If they vanishes, I don't know what my point here is. But it's a great book. You gotta go read it. It's an old book. It's a great book. But you gotta go read it. But they're living
Are
in
people
this.
gonna snatch us? What are you trying to?
I was more.
Are there underground societies
Well,
of
there's-
cannibals?
No, there's
Chris?
aliens living underwater in Cyprus. The aliens they don't come from the sky. They come from underwater. That's why we haven't been able to find them, because we keep looking in the night sky, and we see. It was funny.
We see the effects.
One of the unsolved mysteries we saw the other day from like 1993 had. One of the unsolved mysteries out from '93 had a picture, an old picture of a B-1 was the stealth bomber,
Mm-hmm.
had a picture of a B-1 on there, and
there was the F-117 Nighthawk.
that was it. It was the F-117 Nighthawk. There's a
There
picture
was
of that,
the B-2 Liberty,
and it was
the
funny
B-1B
because they're saying,
Lancer had limited stealth technology.
but they were using that as the photo saying, and the guy was saying, what strange craft is this? The military has denied all. Is this a military? A new military fighter? They've denied all knowledge. And then, but you clearly see it was the F-117. You clearly see what it is now. You're looking at it and you're like, huh, that's so. Like when I was a kid, I remember watching that going, dude, that's totally UFO. It's totally UFO. I guess it was really, but I don't. And maybe it is from
until
another
it
planet.
was identified. Yeah.
And then now we have a label on it, and it's like it's not even special anymore. Maybe it is alien technology. Who knows? I haven't flown in that thing before. Have you?
No.
No, me neither. So, and there might be aliens flying it. You don't know. You don't know. Scotty's looking at me like, whatever, dude. But again, I think they came from the aliens that come from underwater, and that's where we got the F-117 because it looks like a fish.
Okay, so the F-117s
Is the manta ray a fish?
The F-117s are going to snatch us up in the middle of the night and eat us.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
that's it.
I think we solved it.
That was
Good
the
job,
entire
everybody.
point of what I was getting at today.
All right, we'll see you guys next week on.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry you stuck around for so long. I've got more, but I'm kind of bored with this now. Not really bored with it.
It's mentally taxing to go through this, and just another testament to why people would prefer to just throw a couple labels, throw a couple insults, rah my team, and leave it at that. And then we're surprised when we do that, and it devolves into this kind of chaos, because this is not a sporting event.
Right.
This is people's lives, people's livelihoods, people's, man, it's there's a lot more going on than just a sporting event. And it's sad that the political climate is in the state it's in, but it's also sad that it's devolved to the point where one individual figure, being elected or not, has that much, perceived or not, authority over your life, your individual
And that's where I was going with
state
it.
of mind, all that. It's awful.
Thank you. You got me back on track. That's where I was
Thanks.
going
That's
with
what
it. Because that was the part. That was the part that was getting me more.
I simultaneously derail and rerail. That's good.
That was what I was getting frustrated about. Was not really frustrated, but I think that's where I started. This was, how do we get to this state of that one person being, and whoever that one person is? Because really, you could say, right, on one hand, you could say Trump was super divisive, and there's 25% of the country that would say Trump was super divisive.
Mm-hmm.
The other 25% will say he's a great uniter, right? And then you flip it again, you can say, well, President Obama was super divisive. President Obama was a great uniter, right? So you've got this sort of back and forth, and it really depends on what perspective you're looking at, and that's what you're going to get. But again, getting to this point where you've got over 3 years after Trump was elected, you've got Russian collusion. There's the Senate panel where they were saying that Trump colluded with Russia in the 2016. You've got the Paul Manafort investigation. After that, you've got media pundits yelling about collusion for years and people yelling, "Not my president," right? So again, let's go back to the sanctity of the voting process here in 2020. People screaming, "Not my president." Who is it? Dwayne. I got Dwayne introduced to the whole Shia LaBeouf in the flag.
Yeah.
The 4chan flag stuff, which was absolutely hysterical.
What was it said? Remind me.
He will not divide us.
Yeah.
So you've got this, and instead of saying, instead of going with this whole united thing, he will not divide us, right? So you've got this divisive message happening. In 2016, you've got Wikipedia. Did you know this? There was an assassination attempt on President Trump. Do you know this?
No, didn't hear that one.
So according to Wikipedia, who obviously posts the truth all the time, there's an assassination attempt against President Trump by a man named Michael Stephen Sanford. The guy tried to assassinate President Trump, okay? He actually admitted to it. He said, "I tried to take a gun from a policeman and shoot someone with it, sorry. I tried to take a gun from the police and shoot somebody with it. It's an assassination attempt, okay? And I plead guilty." How long did he get sentenced for? So you try to take a gun from a cop, okay? And then you try to attack the president with it.
I imagine you would get put underground and the key thrown away.
Any ideas?
I mean, by your tone, I'm assuming it's preposterous how little time he got.
1 year in prison and received less than 5 months on his sentence. He got sentenced for 1 year and he only served 5 months.
I've heard of people with possession of marijuana getting more than that.
Right. So anyway,
minimum mandatory sentences in some states is 5 times that.
Tens of thousands of people protesting President Trump's election on November 9th in Midtown Manhattan. There were 124 arrests, vandalism, violence, 100,000 people in Columbus Circle, 65 arrests, people climbing light poles. Police had to pull them down. Hundreds of protesters in Chicago, vandalism, people writing F Trump on the side of a bus. I thought that was pretty funny. Capitol Hill, you've got 100 protesters blocking roads, setting trash on fire. This is during the protesting President Trump. 7,000 people in California setting fires. Vandalism, possession of firearms, chanting "Not our president," and misogyny has to go, and Donald Trump is a rapist. These are all people talking about Oakland. There were 3 Oakland police officers that were injured, and 2 patrol cars burned. And I could go on. Okay, now in 2020, before Biden has even been put into office, like that's today, we have a riot on Capitol Hill. And here's the thing. I'm not blaming anybody on the ground as far as the police and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're hearing things, and we're going to know more in 6 months than we know right now because it's happening right now. Like, we're reacting to it in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have, the images that you see very few police. You see very few people standing there. You've got senators and Congress members that are literally in session. And you have... And even the police are saying we're understaffed right now. I don't understand why we're understaffed, right? Send help, right? You see this. Very few people that are there, and you've got a bunch of folks charging the Capitol. And here's the thing. charging the Capitol to try to get in for whatever purpose, okay? If we're going to make it, I don't know. I don't say if we're going to make a change in this country, like violence is not the answer. Violence begets violence, right? So that's how we got our country, right? From the king back in 1776, or really before that, or after that, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was kind of.
My daughter's like, what?
It was kind of interesting how that everybody was saying that this is so un-American. This is so un-American. I'm sitting like,
this is pretty uniquely American. Actually, it's not even uniquely American.
This is kind of what American do.
Kind of what made us, right?
This is what the American do.
Yeah, because this is how we became America, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that that's what we should do again.
No.
We'd like to think that we're more civilized than we were back then.
You know, all options are on the table given the circumstances, but obviously we want to always exhaust all peaceful means for change within our country, within the political arena.
Because once you've reached violence,
you breach that, man, and it gets ugly fast.
Well, you're not listening to reason. You're not listening to thought. There's no discourse back and forth, and people can't figure stuff out. You can't, because you really can't think when somebody's pointing a gun at you, yelling at you, telling you what to do, right? The violence, shooting people, you're losing, shooting people, killing people, yelling people, punching people, all that stuff. Conversation stopped at this point. We can't talk anymore. We can't come up with anything intelligent at this point. Now we're just monkeys beating on each other. Like that's what we're doing. And really where I'm trying to get at is, how the heck did we get here? How did we get here? Like, how did we get from the point, and do we want to be here? And that's for me is really the question. Do we want to be here? Are we happy here?
No.
Can we take a step back and look at the last 20 or 30 years and say, you know what? The pinnacle of people running around with iPads and iPhones and computers and jets that fly everywhere, and you have access at your home to more information than we know anyone has had access to if you were to tell somebody 20 years ago, I'm going to hold something in my hand and I'm going to ask it Star Trek.
The totality of human knowledge that we have available right now.
You can get 50 people on video chat to talk to anybody around the world at this point. They can do that in space now, right?
Yeah.
You've got satellites flying around, thank you, Elon Musk, that are giving people internet where they have no landlines, right?
Yep.
But we're yelling at
Starlink, right?
Starlink, yep. Yeah, I'm going to invest. IPO when that sucker happens.
It's about $100 a month, from what I understand, if you want the service.
Better than nothing.
There are people that are on the pilot for it that are getting really good connection speeds.
Yeah.
Like 70 megs and stuff.
It's crazy. And low latency, too. That's the crazy part. But we've got all of this that at our fingertips. Mm-hmm. Yet we're pointing at each other and we're yelling, you right, you bad. You left, you bad. Like, that can't be the end of the conversation.
Well, you think about the Capitol officer who was killed there. I mean, people literally beat a man to death.
For what purpose?
And then another one, I heard another story. Another one of the Capitol police officers that was involved committed suicide.
That's awful.
Yeah, and it's like, here we are at this point in human development where, like you said, we've got all this stuff at our disposal, and in the meantime, we're a few steps away from clubbing each other to death with a fire extinguisher and or a flagpole.
Yeah, no, the image of the man hitting the police officer with the flagpole, with the American flag, with somebody standing behind him with a Blue Lives Matter, it was a thin blue line flag. That just blows my mind. Like, there's so much wrong in that. And again, what I don't want to focus on is just this Capitol Hill riot. Yeah. We've had riots over the past 5-6 years now. Mm-hmm. And I guess, and even if you look at the punch and Nazi rhetoric, okay? Mm-hmm. Look, man, if you say someone's a Nazi and you punch them in the face, okay?
Does that stop them from being a Nazi?
You're done. The conversation's over, right? Like, you're done. You're not getting anywhere past that. And
nothing is gained.
Nothing is gained. You haven't learned anything. They haven't learned anything. All they know is that, you're a jerk. You just punch them in the face. You're violent, right? So that's the end of the conversation. And if
my assumptions have been verified by your actions just now. That's what goes in their mind.
And in my mind, if you're punching me in the face because you're calling me a Nazi,
and even worse, you make them a martyr.
You're telling me that you disagree with my thoughts and actions. If I'm right, you're disagreeing with my thoughts. I'm gonna punch you. That's fascist anyway. So now you're as my old roommate would say. Now you're both fascists, right?
Yeah.
Like now you're both jerks because you've done the thing. You're out campaigning and saying Nazis are do this thing where if they don't believe in you, they punch you. So now I'm gonna punch you for being that.
Not only that, but what does that individual who had those thoughts, what are they left with as a recourse after that? Because now they're being told you're expressing your thoughts is no longer acceptable. It will be met with violence. What is the next step they take?
It's violence.
It
That's
escalates.
It escalates. And instead of correcting the thoughts, like
through discourse,
Hitler's dead, or at the very least on the moon with Elvis. Okay, so
you said
instead of
Hitler,
yeah.
Yeah. I thought you said Hillary at first. I was like, oh, what?
Oh no, she'll go back on the mothership when planet the 10th planet comes back.
She'll molt eventually.
Yeah,
shed this human form. Okay, yeah.
She'll get a new one and they'll send her back. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
We're not done with
her. Her eyes still blink this way, right?
They do.
Yeah. I remember Alex Jones showing us a video of that. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, the Messiah and the prophet Alex Jones. But again,
they're turning the frogs gay.
He was right.
That is true.
He was right. The chemical's doing it. Not necessarily, but I think it would make the frogs hermaphroditic, something like that.
They kind of are already, anyways.
I think they were.
It just kind of triggered it.
Yeah, but instead of actually talking through
Meanwhile, back on planet Earth,
you start punching people, and then you're done. Like the conversation's over. And for me, the pinnacle of society, right? The pinnacle of society is to be able to stand in a peaceful gathering and have conversations with each other.
Open public discourse.
And that is not what we're seeing. What we see are people either being violent, beating a police officer with the American flag, insanity, or you have people yelling at each other on TV and not listening to each other. Cancel culture, right? They're yelling at each other and no one's listening, no one's paying attention. And if that is the epitome of what we've gotten to, wow, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here.
Well, you asked, like, how do we get here? Do we want to be here? Kind of what do we do about it and stuff? I mean, is this all just part of the cycle, the aspiration of society, right? We've got, you've got your silk slippers down or wooden shoes up, silk slippers down.
That's right.
As Dan Carlin would say from time to time.
Right.
And you've got just the ebb and flow, right? The rise and fall of empires.
Of empires.
And we're in one of those stages. Now, history is not doomed to repeat itself infinitely to the nth degree, but there definitely is some ebbs and flows going on. And if you're paying attention and trying to draw these correlations, you can see it. You can see that we're in the silk slippers phase. We've been in the silk slipper phase for a while. The fact that we've stopped producing, for the most part, it's one of the symptoms. And that's one of the symptoms that Rome went through during its decline, with Greece, with its decline. And it's pretty easy to pick up on these things. Are we not just in one of those phases and we're just seeing the symptoms, and we need to just hold on and enjoy the ride as much as you can? Is it that like pessimistic, or
maybe we can turn around and go back up that ladder, make some changes to go back up that ladder, start thinking, you know what, maybe making war with everybody all around the planet isn't that great. Maybe being okay with using child slave labor in other countries to get our doodads at a little bit better price is not that great. Maybe yelling at each other instead of having an open discourse of ideas is maybe not that great. Or maybe
being willing to reshape or reform or even strengthen our opinions through discourse is the right way to do things.
Conversation, thoughts, and acceptance of other people's at least ideas and opinions. Not necessarily saying, you know what?
Not endorsement.
I agree with you in everything you say.
Real tolerance versus endorsement. I think that's an okay position to have.
And giving yourself a moment to think about what they have to say.
And we have to be willing to let it happen both ways.
That's right.
If you're going to preach tolerance, then by golly, you better be tolerant of people you disagree with.
Well, not even both ways, always. Right?
Yeah, always.
Because you don't just have the left and the right. You've got a bunch of other folks.
I meant both
as
in your opinion and the opinions of others.
Got it.
Sorry.
Got it. Which is, I mean, think about it. If we still have flat Earth,
I'm smelling what you're stepping in.
Right. All right. Well, that's all I got for right now. Let's move on to something else later.
Well, how long have we been going? Can we get a time check?
No, we've been going way too long.
2 hours.
Oh
2
my gosh.
hours?
Let's cut it and let's talk about something else in a little bit.
All right.
Because I gotta take a break.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
We'll
for
talk to you next time.
Yep. Don't forget to like and hit that
Just coffee talk. No big whoop.
right.
We good?